Hi there, today we are in the gorgeous Peak District and it is 6 months since we moved to the UK. And this has given me plenty of time to think about what my expectations were before I moved to the UK. And trust me, I had a lot of expectations and whether they've matched reality or not. I mean, truth be told, a lot of us grew up watching Karan Johar movies, right? I mean, we've all seen K3G, right? And if you remember in K3G, Rahul and Anjali moved to the UK and they live in London in this big fancy house with fancy cars and they have Khala Jan cleaning up after them and cooking for everything, right? Yeah, that's not the case over here. If you plan on moving to the UK or if you're considering moving to the UK, I very strongly suggest you watch this video all the way till the end because I'm going to be busting some myths. Now, for starters, you might think everyone lives in London. No, they don't. Well, to be honest, even the people who work in London don't live in London, and this is why. For starters, London is extremely expensive. When you're thinking of rent, think in terms of Mumbai, where it's crazy expensive, and most often all you can afford is a little shoebox. Yeah, that's London, just worse. Well, apart from that, the other thing is it's always filled with like a million people. So you're constantly bumping into somebody or the other. There's honestly no leg room. And it isn't called the big smog without reason. Which is why a lot of people who move to the UK, even if they work in London, choose to live just outside London like us. We live in a town called Maidenhead, which is about 30 minutes from London. It gives you a lot more legroom, it's a lot friendlier, people are nicer, and zero pollution. You're going to think that understanding people isn't going to be a challenge because everyone speaks English, but you're wrong. If you know a fair amount of English, you probably think you're going to understand everything that's said here. I mean, it's not like you're working in Germany or Singapore, right? You don't need to know German or Cantonese. But that's the tricky part. You see, the Brits don't speak English like we do. I mean, we think they would considering our history and everything, but we couldn't be further from the truth. Take, for instance, the word cheers. In India, when we say cheers, it's usually when you're on your first drink. But in the UK, cheers can mean thanks, it can mean yes, it can mean a sarcastic way of saying both of the above, or it could just mean that they're ending the conversation. It can mean any of these things. Strange, right? If someone in the UK says they're minted, it means they're really rich. If someone's pissed, it doesn't mean they're angry like we think in India. It just means they're drunk. If someone calls you a tosser, they're calling you stupid. And if someone says you're right, they're probably just saying hi. They're not really asking you how you're doing. So don't bother telling them how you are and how your day went. It can get a little confusing. Now, you're going to think driving in the UK is going to be relatively simple. Again, not true. You might think it's going to be simple because, well, the steering is on the right-hand side like in India and they drive on the left again like India, but that's where all the similarities end. For starters, the UK has a million rules for everything. And as a driver in the UK, you need to know all of the road rules, not just for other drivers, but also for horse riders, and for cyclists, and for pedestrians. Of all the people who give a driving test in the UK, only 50% pass the driving test in their attempt. So that kind of gives you an idea of how difficult it is to pass a driving test in the UK. And what happens if you break a rule? Well, not only do you get a speeding ticket or a fine, but you also get points on your license, penalty points. And if you get about 12 penalty points over 3 years, they cancel your license. Yeah, that's right. Road rules are taken extremely seriously in the UK. That being said, once you know the rules, it's extremely easy to drive in the UK because everyone over here follows the rules, everyone follows driving etiquette, and so if you know the rules, you're honestly on the same page as everyone else. Now, contrary to popular belief, it does not rain in the UK all the time. So when we were moving to the UK, we got a bunch of umbrellas and really heavy raincoats and really heavy rain boots thinking we're going to be wading in water all the time. That's not the case. When it does rain in the UK, it's more of a heavy drizzle, to be very honest, and not even like heavy rain in India. If you're from India and if you're from the coast, you know what torrential downpours are like, and that's what we were expecting. But most of the time, the drizzle here is so light that you can just put on a light jacket and just go out and it doesn't really affect you as much. Apart from that, It's really rained heavily, probably only 4 or 5 times in the past 6 months that I've been here. And on most days, it's just cloudy. And today, for instance, it's a really, really bright day and it's extremely sunny. It was supposed to snow, but there's no snow. But one thing you do have to keep in mind when you're in the UK is you need to constantly check the weather app. When we first moved to the UK and I was dropping Jordan off at school, I made the mistake of not checking the weather app because the weather was like 18 degrees the day before. And I went to drop him to school just wearing a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, and suddenly it was freezing. And I look around and all the other parents who came to drop their kids off were all wearing appropriate clothing. They were all covered up in thick clothes and I was the only one freezing out there. And I realized that everyone in the UK checks the weather app every single day. And that's not enough. Everyone checks the weather app multiple times during the day because the weather keeps changing through the day. For instance, yesterday was supposed to be an extremely sunny day and it wasn't supposed to rain at all. And we were heading out in Peak District and I told my husband, let's not just take umbrellas or rain boots. We don't need them. It's not going to rain. And he was like, we're in the UK. It can rain at any point. So let's just take it. And it did rain. Today was supposed to snow in the morning and it was actually, there were some flurries in the morning and now it's extremely bright and hot. So the weather changes every hour as well. So if you're moving to the UK, remember to keep checking the weather app because the weather is extremely unpredictable. Now, you might be inclined to think that you're not going to get Indian food in the UK. You're wrong. So let's be really clear. You do get really great Indian food in the UK. What you also get is all of your Indian groceries. But it comes with a caveat. If you ask me if you want to eat really good Indian food in the UK, the best way to get it is to make it yourself. And that's because you get all of the Indian groceries. You get everything from Amul cheese to garam masala to Kisan jam. I am not kidding. Every little town and city of the UK will have at least one Indian store that stocks up all of this, and the rates are pretty similar to back home. So if you really want to eat something, my suggestion would be that you make it yourself. Now, if you want to eat out, it gets a little tricky. A lot of the Indian food here has been made to cater to the tastes of the people who live here. So your butter chicken is sweet, and your chicken tikka is sweet, and your palak paneer is sweet, and your biryani may be sweet as well, and your raita is always sweet. There are no spices in anything, I am not kidding. If you want to eat authentic Indian food outside your home, there are 3 options. The first option is you head over to South Hall, where there's a bunch of Indian restaurants which make great authentic Indian food. The second option is you head over to London, which has so much of variety that you're bound to have some great Indian restaurants. And the third option, which is what we do right now, is that you keep trying out all the Indian restaurants in your locality in the hope that one of them makes authentic food. You will be disappointed a lot, but you do not give up hope. We're still trying. We still haven't found that perfect restaurant in Maidenhead. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, please do so and hit the bell icon for notifications. Okay, now you're probably going to think everything in the UK is expensive, and that's why you're right. When you first get to the UK, believe what everyone told you. You will convert everything into rupees. Every time you see a little price tag, you'll immediately do the calculation, convert it into rupees, and then go, oh my God. But at some point, you're going to have to remind yourself that everything is more expensive because you earn in pounds, and pounds is a higher currency, right? You're making more money here, so you obviously have to spend more money as well. It just takes some getting used to, because the first time you see the cost of bread and you realize it's like 250 rupees, you will have a bit of a shock. And the first time you see your electricity bill is 10,000 rupees, trust me, you are going to, well, shocked is a mild way of putting it. But then you realize that's what everything around here costs, and then you get used to it. So don't worry. As soon as the money starts rolling in pounds, it will be less of a concern. You probably think you won't have a lot of friends in the UK. Well, that part's a little tricky. The truth is, you will make friends, just not as quickly as you expected. The reason why I say you will make friends is because there's bound to be a lot of people from your original hometown, or a lot of people who are like-minded like you are. When we initially came here, I didn't expect to make any friends. But I can definitely say now that we do have some. A lot of times you end up making friends with people who've come from your hometown because you have so much history together. You can obviously talk about the weather and you can talk about your favorite Golgappa place. You can talk about how shit the traffic is, right? You have so much in common to talk about. Making friends with the locals is a different matter, simply because they socialize very differently from what you and we do. From what I've seen, the Brits generally tend to socialize with people they've known for longer times and take a little time to warm up to outsiders, but once they do, they're bound to love you. You are also going to think that you are going to visit Europe all the time. Or maybe that was just me. So when we were planning on moving to the UK, I was like, oh, Paris is 3 hours away. I'm just going to catch a train from London to Paris and go eat croissant every time I want and every time I'm in the mood and just look at the Eiffel Tower because it's just so close by. Yeah, that's not the case. Well, for starters, if you are an Indian in the UK, you need a Schengen visa to go to Europe. And unlike in India, it's not as easy to get an appointment to get a visa in the first place. In India, every time you wanted to go to Europe, you just easily got an appointment at BFS. Well, here there's TLS and BFS. And trust me when I say this, they don't have appointment slots half the time. The last time we checked for appointment slots to go to Europe, they were just like, oh, we have no appointment slots left, check next month. So that's another challenge. And the other thing is, there are very few centers in the whole of the UK. So if we want an appointment, we have to go to London to get an appointment. So getting the whole Schengen visa by itself is a huge hassle. The other thing is, you're bound to think it's really cheap to go down to Europe because it's just here, right? It's not too far away from the UK. And that's where you're wrong. You'll probably start off by looking at Ryanair flight tickets and realizing it's so cheap and it's probably more expensive to buy groceries in the shop than to fly to Europe. But the minute you start adding in those bags, you realize that the costs are not so different from what we used to see back home. So it is eventually an expensive affair. So if you, like me, have been expecting to go over to Europe every weekend just to chill and whenever you feel like it, assume that's not going to happen. Oh, and in the UK, there is no khala jar. You are your own khala jar. You see, in India, you probably had a cook and a cleaner and somebody who came and cleaned your car and a gardener. And every time something was broken in the house, you call somebody from House Joy or Urban Clap. Yeah, that doesn't happen over here. In the UK, you play all these roles yourself. The main reason for this is because labor costs are so expensive in the UK. So if you expect someone to come over and cook or clean, it can get really, really expensive. The other thing is that all the people over here have grown up doing their own things themselves. So they don't really have the culture of hiring outside help to get this work done. So you need to get used to doing all of this stuff yourself. For instance, when we first moved to the UK and we got all of our furniture, all of the furniture had to be assembled by us. And because this is not something we had done in India before, we were obviously extremely nervous, but it turned out to be relatively simple. But if you are planning on moving to the UK, I very strongly recommend a couple of things. Do learn the basics of carpentry, plumbing, and electrical work, just the basics to help you get by every single day. Apart from that, I would very strongly suggest you either invest in some tools from India and bring them here, or just buy them here directly. You would need a set of screwdrivers, get a whole manual set, and do invest in an electric power screwdriver if you can, because trust me, without that, it would have taken us 3 times the amount of time to set up everything in our house. If you can get a drill, get a drill. And we're almost done, but here's an interesting update. Remember when I said it was supposed to snow and it got really sunny? Well, it snowed. Like literally 10 minutes later, it was snowing like there was no tomorrow. And that's exactly why you should check the weather app. Anyway, if you need help making sure the UK is the best place for you to be, well, you can find out by checking this video. Thanks for watching and have a great weekend.